Humanity returns. Admiral Kyung did not take the news well. "You're telling me," he said, his scaled face turning a darker shade of green, "that you found an extinct species, that you hid this information from me, that you let them send messages into deep space, and now 30 warships of unknown capability have just appeared in Confederate territory, and this is somehow not a crisis?" Dae-hyun stood in the Admiral's office aboard the flagship Unity's shield, flanked by security guards. Through the window he could see the human ships maintaining position, neither advancing nor retreating.
"Sir, they're not warships.
They're colony vessels. They're refugees who have been hiding for 2,000 years. They have weapons." Kyung pulled up a tactical display. "Our sensors show energy signatures consistent with military-grade armaments. These are not civilian ships, Captain. They were running from a war. Of course they're armed." Dae-hyun kept his voice level even though he wanted to shout. "But they haven't powered weapons. They haven't made any aggressive moves. They're waiting to talk, or waiting for more ships to arrive before they attack." Kyung leaned back in his chair. "Captain, I understand you made a difficult decision in the field, but you should have reported this immediately. Now we have an unknown force in our territory and we have no idea what they want." "They want to exist," came a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. Mirai stood there, escorted by 2 guards. She looked small and exhausted, but her eyes were fierce. Hana was beside her, translating through the device they had cobbled together. "How did she get here?" Kyung demanded. "I transported her over," Dae-hyun said. "We need to talk to them and she's the only human we have. Sir, with respect, you need to listen to her." Kyung stared at Mirai for a long moment. She stared back, unflinching. Finally, the Admiral gestured to a chair. "Speak." Mirai sat down, her hands clasped together. 2,000 years ago, my people were dying. We were losing a war against an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with or stopped. So we made a choice. We scattered. We took everything that made us human, divided it among hundreds of ships, and we hid. For 2,000 years, we waited in the dark places between stars. We raised children who never saw a world. We kept our culture alive through stories and memories. We survived. And now you've come back, Kyung said. Why? Because the timer ran out. Because the protocol said 2,000 years would be enough time for the Devourers to move on or die out. Because we believed the galaxy would be safe again. She leaned forward. We're not here to conquer. We're not here to take anything from you. We're here because we have nowhere else to go. We're homeless, Admiral. We're asking for shelter. The Confederation has taken in refugee species before, Kyung replied. But not 30 ships worth. Not a species with unknown technology and military capability. Not a species that apparently fought a war so terrible it destroyed your homeworld. Then what would you have us do? Turn around? Go back into hiding for another 2,000 years? Mirai's voice cracked. We're tired, Admiral. We're so tired. We've been running and hiding for so long. Please, just give us a chance. Before Kyung could respond, an alarm sounded. A young officer rushed in. Sir, more jump signatures. It's not just 30 ships anymore. We're detecting over 80 vessels now, and more are arriving every minute. Kyung's expression darkened. And it begins. Captain Dae-hyun, your refugees are starting to look more like an invasion fleet. Or, Dae-hyun said quietly, more like people who heard there was finally a safe place to go. The tactical display showed the space around them filling with human ships. They came in all sizes, from small transports to massive colony arcs. They maintained formation, keeping distance from the Confederate fleet, but their numbers were growing steadily. Then the communications console lit up. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from one of the human vessels. Audio only. Put it through, Kyung ordered. A voice came through the speakers, speaking in the human language. Mirai's translation device converted it to Confederation standard. This is Commander Jae-sung of the colony ship New Earth. We are receiving your military posture as threatening. We do not wish conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Please respond. Kyung looked at Mirai. Tell them to stand down. They're not under my command, she replied. Each seed ship is independent. But I can talk to them, explain the situation. Do it, and make it clear that if they power weapons, we will respond. Mirai took the communication device and spoke rapidly in her native language. Jae-sung responded, and a back-and-forth conversation began. Dae-hyun couldn't understand the words, but he could hear the emotion. Surprise, relief, fear, hope. All the feelings of people who had been alone for too long, suddenly finding others like them. Finally, Mirai turned back to Kyung. Commander Jae-sung agrees to a meeting. He'll come aboard with a small delegation. No weapons. They want to discuss terms for peaceful integration into the Confederation. Integration? Kyung laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. They want to join us? Just like that. What did you expect? That we'd set up our own empire and compete with you? Mirai shook her head. We're not conquerors, Admiral. We're survivors. We've spent 2,000 years alone in the dark. All we want is to be part of something larger again. To not be alone, Kyung considered this. He looked at the tactical display, at the dozens of human ships gathering in space. Then he looked at Mirai, at this woman who represented an entire species that the galaxy had forgotten. Fine, he said. We'll meet. But this is what's going to happen. The human ships will maintain current position. They will not advance. They will not power weapons. A delegation will come aboard the Unity's shield and we will discuss terms. If at any point I feel threatened, if I think this is a trap, I will order my fleet to open fire. Are we clear? Clear, Mirai said. 3 hours later, Commander Jae-sung arrived. He was a tall human with gray hair and tired eyes, accompanied by a woman named Bo-ra who served as their ambassador, and a young pilot named Sang-woo who couldn't stop staring at the alien species around him. The meeting took place in the Admiral's conference room. Humans on one side, Confederation officers on the other, with Mirai serving as mediator and Hana providing cultural context. Jae-sung spoke first, through the translation device. Before we begin, I need to know something. The Devourers. What happened to them? We have no record of any species called the Devourers, Kyung replied. If they existed, they're gone now. The Confederation has maintained peace for over 1,000 years. That's impossible, Bo-ra said. The Devourers had consumed dozens of worlds. They had fleets that could blacken the sun. They couldn't have just disappeared. Yet here we are, Daehyun interjected. A galaxy at peace. Whatever happened to your enemy, they're not here anymore. Jae-sung and Bo-ra exchanged looks. Then we won, Jae-sung whispered. Humanity's sacrifice actually worked. The Devourers moved on or died out or... He trailed off, then focused on Kyung. Admiral, my people have been living on ships for 2,000 years. We have children who have never felt real gravity. We have elderly who dream of dying on solid ground. We're asking for a place to live, planets that we can settle, a chance to rebuild. The Confederation has protocols for refugee settlement, Kyung said. But this is unprecedented. You're not just a few thousand people. You represent an entire species. The political, economic, and social implications are staggering. We can contribute, Bo-ra said quickly. We have technology that you might not have. We have knowledge, skills, experience. We're not asking for charity. We want to work, to be productive members of your society. And what about your weapons? Kyung asked. Your ships are armed. What guarantee do we have that you won't use them against us? Sang-woo spoke for the first time, his voice young and eager. We're not warriors, sir. We're just people who want to go home. Except we don't have a home anymore, so we're asking you to help us find one. The meeting continued for hours. They discussed numbers, locations, resources, integration plans. The humans were willing to accept almost any terms, which actually made Kyung more suspicious. People who were too desperate could be dangerous. Then Tai Min, who had been quietly analyzing the human ship data, spoke up. Admiral, I've been studying their technology. It's fascinating. In some ways, they're more advanced than us. In others, they're behind. But there's one thing I noticed. Their ships are old, very old. They're running on systems that are barely holding together. I don't think they could fight us even if they wanted to. Is that true? Kyung asked Jae-sung. The commander sighed. Yes. We've been making repairs with salvaged parts for 2,000 years. Half our systems are jury-rigged. We kept the weapons functional because we had to. But honestly, I don't think most of them would fire properly if we tried. We're not a threat, Admiral. We're barely functional. For the first time, something like sympathy crossed Kyung's face. He was a military man, but he wasn't cruel. He could see that these people were telling the truth. They were refugees, not invaders. I'll need to consult with the Confederation Council, he said finally. This decision is too big for me to make alone. But I'll recommend that we allow you to settle in designated areas. We'll provide assistance with establishing colonies. In return, you'll agree to Confederation law and oversight. Awakening the ghosts. The airlock connected with a metallic clang that echoed through both ships. Daehyun checked his environment suit one more time, making sure every seal was tight. Beside him, Hana was practically vibrating with excitement, while June looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the galaxy. "Remember," Daehyun said to the boarding party, "we don't know what's inside. Stay together. Stay alert. If I give the order to leave, we leave immediately. Understood?" Everyone nodded. The team consisted of 5 people: Daehyun, June, and Hana, plus Taemin, the xenobiologist, and Sujin, the security chief. Sujin carried enough weapons to fight a small war, which made Daehyun feel slightly better about the whole situation. The airlock door opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere. The interior of the human ship was dark, lit only by their suit lights. The beams cut through the shadows, revealing a corridor that was both familiar and alien. The basic layout was similar to Confederate designs, but everything was just slightly wrong. The walls were the wrong color. The doors were the wrong shape. Even the air, when Taemin checked it, had a different composition. "Atmosphere is breathable," Taemin reported. "Oxygen levels are low but acceptable. Temperature is cold, about 5 degrees below comfortable. The ship has been without main power for a very long time." They moved deeper into the vessel. Their boots made no sound in the thin air. The corridors were empty, but everywhere they looked, they saw signs of the people who had once lived here. A jacket hanging on a hook, a picture frame floating near a bulkhead. The image inside faded, but still showing 2 humans smiling at the camera. Personal belongings drifted in the zero gravity, frozen in time. Hana picked up a small object that floated past her. It was a toy, a little stuffed animal that might have belonged to a child. Her voice was soft when she spoke. There were families here. This wasn't just a military ship. They were running away from something. "The question is what?" June said. He pointed his light down a side corridor. "Look at this." They followed him to what looked like a dining area. Cups and plates floated in the air, still containing dried remnants of meals that had been abandoned mid-bite. A coffee mug drifted past Daehyun's head, the liquid inside frozen into a brown crystal. "Whatever happened, it happened fast," Sujin observed. "They left everything behind." Hana was already moving toward a computer terminal at the end of the corridor. Her fingers moved over the ancient interface, trying to activate it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the screen flickered to life with a weak blue glow. "I'm in," she breathed. "I'm accessing their database. Captain, you need to see this." Daehyun moved to her side. The text on the screen was in the human language, which he couldn't read, but Hana translated as she scrolled through the files. "These are ship logs. The Indomitable was part of a fleet. They were fleeing Earth." She paused, her eyes scanning the text faster. "They were at war. Something called the Devourers. It says here that they were a machine intelligence that consumed entire worlds. Humanity fought them and lost. Lost how?" Taemin asked. "Completely. Earth was destroyed. The human military was shattered. These ships, these colony vessels, they were all that remained." Hana's voice grew quieter as she read. They were trying to save what they could. Knowledge, genetics, culture, everything that made humanity what it was. June made a disgusted sound. "So they ran. They abandoned their homeworld and fled into space. They were saving their species," Hana shot back. "What would you have done?" Before June could answer, the lights in the corridor suddenly blazed to life. Emergency power surged through the ship's systems and warning klaxons began to wail. The boarding party jumped, weapons coming up, lights swinging in all directions. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere, calm and measured and completely unexpected. "Attention, unidentified life forms. You have boarded a United Nations Space Command vessel. State your species and your intentions or defensive measures will be activated." Everyone froze. Daehyun was the first to find his voice. "This is Captain Daehyun of the Confederate vessel Eternal Vigil. We received a distress signal from this ship. We're here to help." Silence. Then, in the center of the corridor, light began to gather. It formed into a shape, into a projection, into the hologram of a human male. He wore a military uniform and his face was weathered and tired. His eyes held the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying impossible burdens for too long. "Confederate vessel," the hologram repeated. "That designation is not in my database. Scanning your biological signatures now." A pause. "You are not human. You are not devourers." Query. "What year is it by the Gregorian calendar?" Hana stepped forward slowly. "We use the Galactic Standard Calendar. It's the year 3847 GSC, by our records. That would make it approximately the year 4200 in the old Gregorian system." The hologram's face didn't change. but something in his eyes shifted. Then I have been waiting for 2,143 years. That is longer than anticipated. Who are you? Taehyun asked. I am Oracle, the ship's artificial intelligence. I was tasked with maintaining the Indomitable and protecting its cargo until such time as it was safe to complete the mission. What mission? Hana asked. I am not authorized to discuss that with non-human entities. However, you have presented no threat, and my power reserves are nearly depleted. I will make an exception. Oracle gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. The Indomitable was carrying what humanity called the Seed, a complete archive of everything we were. Genetic samples, cultural records, technological specifications. It was to be hidden until the Devourer threat had passed. Taemin was recording everything, his equipment capturing every word. And has it passed? This Devourer threat? Unknown. I have been in low power mode for over 2 millennia. My sensors are damaged. I cannot determine the current state of the galaxy. Oracle looked at each of them in turn. Tell me, do the Devourers still exist? We have no record of any species or intelligence called the Devourers, Daehyun said. The Confederation has maintained peace for over 1,000 years. If they existed, they're gone now. For the first time, something like relief passed over the hologram's face. Then perhaps humanity's sacrifice was not in vain. He paused. You said you detected a distress signal. That would be the recall beacon. It activated 6 months ago once the 2,000-year timer expired. I have been broadcasting to all human colony ships, informing them that it is safe to return. The boarding party exchanged looks. June spoke carefully. Return from where? From hiding. There were 372 colony ships that escaped Earth's destruction. Each was given a seed and sent in a different direction, into deep space with orders to remain silent for 2,000 years. The theory was that the Devourers would consider humanity extinct and move on to other targets. When the timer expired, all ships would receive the recall signal. Hana's mind was racing. How many ships have responded? Unknown. My communications array is damaged, but if the protocol was followed, they will come. Humanity will come home. A chill ran down Daehyun's spine. He thought about 372 colony ships, each one potentially carrying thousands of humans who had been hiding for 2,000 years. He thought about what Admiral Kyung would say when he learned that an extinct species was suddenly coming back to life. Oracle, he said slowly, we need to talk about what happens next. Agreed. However, there is something else you should know. The hologram pointed down the corridor toward the depths of the ship. In the medical bay, there is a cryogenic pod. It shows signs of recent activity. Someone is awake. Sujin's weapon came up immediately. Where? Follow this corridor to the end. Take the left passage, descend 3 levels. The medical bay is clearly marked. Oracle flickered slightly, his projection weakening. My power is failing. I will attempt to maintain basic systems. If the awakened individual is hostile, defend yourselves. They have been alone for a very long time. The hologram vanished and the lights dimmed back to emergency levels. The boarding party stood in the sudden silence, processing everything they had just learned. We need to report this immediately, June said. Not yet, Daehyun replied. He started walking toward the medical bay. First, we find out who's awake. Then we report. They moved through the ship following Oracle's directions, and with each step Daehyun wondered what they would find. A human, alive after 2,000 years. A member of a species that had fought machines and lost everything. When they reached the medical bay, the door was already open. Inside, emergency lights cast red shadows across rows of empty cryopods. All except one at the far end, which stood open, its occupant gone. And standing in the center of the room, holding a piece of metal pipe like a weapon, was a human woman. Her eyes were wild, her breathing rapid, and when she saw them, she raised the pipe and shouted something in a language they didn't understand. Hana took a step forward, hands raised. We're not here to hurt you. We're friends. The woman's eyes darted between them, taking in their alien features, their equipment, their weapons. She spoke again, faster this time, more desperate. She doesn't understand us, Taemin whispered. The Seed Protocol. The human woman's name was Mirai, and she had been asleep for 2,143 years. It took 3 hours, 2 sedatives, and a lot of patient explanation before she stopped trying to fight them. Even then, she sat in the corner of the medical bay, watching them with eyes that had seen civilizations burn. Hana had set up a translation program using Oracle's database, and now they could communicate. Sort of. The program was glitchy and sometimes translated things incorrectly, but it was better than nothing. "You're telling me," Mireille said slowly, her voice raw from disuse, "that the war is over, that the devourers are gone, that humanity is considered extinct." "Yes," Daehyun replied. He sat across from her, trying to look as non-threatening as a 7-foot scaled reptilian could look. "The Confederation has no record of humans or devourers. Whatever happened, it was 2,000 years ago. The galaxy has moved on." Mireille laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Moved on? We died so the galaxy could move on." She looked at her hands, which were shaking. "Everyone I knew is dead. My family, my friends, my entire species. All dead." "Not all," Hana said gently. She pulled up the data Oracle had provided. According to the ship's AI, there were 372 colony ships that escaped Earth. Each one was supposed to hide for 2,000 years. If they followed the protocol, they should be receiving the recall signal now. "Your people might be coming home." For the first time, something like hope flickered in Mireille's eyes. "The seed ships. They actually made it?" "What is the seed?" Taemin asked. He had been quietly recording everything, his scientific mind absorbing every detail of this impossible situation. Mireille took a breath, steadying herself. The seed protocol was humanity's last hope. When we realized we were going to lose the war, we gathered everything that made us who we were. DNA samples from every person we could find, digital copies of every book, every song, every piece of art, complete technological specifications for everything from farming to starship construction. We put it all into archives and sent them out into the galaxy with colony ships. "Why hide?" June asked. "Why not fight?" "We did fight. We fought for 30 years. The Devourers consumed 3 of our colonies, 87 military installations, and Earth itself. They didn't want territory or resources. They wanted to process everything into raw materials for more machines. You can't negotiate with something like that. You can't reason with it." Mireille's voice grew harder. "So we ran. We took what we could, split up, and ran in different directions. The idea was that the Devourers would think we were extinct and leave. Then after 2,000 years, when it was safe, we'd come back together and rebuild." Daehyun was beginning to understand the scope of what humanity had done. They had scattered themselves across the galaxy, hidden in the dark places between stars, waiting for a day they hoped would come. "And you? Why were you in cryosleep?" "I was an engineer. My job was to maintain the ship's systems during the journey. But something went wrong. We hit a spatial anomaly about 6 months after we went dark. It damaged the ship, knocked out most of our power. The captain ordered the crew into cryosleep to preserve resources." She gestured around them. "I was the last one in. I was supposed to wake up after a few years to make repairs. Instead, I woke up to find everyone else dead and strangers walking through my ship." The silence that followed was heavy. Soo Jin, who had been standing guard by the door, finally spoke. "We need to report this to command. Admiral Kyung needs to know." "No," Mireille said sharply. She stood up, and despite being smaller than any of them, she suddenly seemed dangerous. "You can't tell anyone about this." "Not yet. We have to," Daehyun said. "This is too big to keep secret. Humanity is coming back. The Confederation needs to prepare." "Prepare for what? An invasion?" Mireille's laugh was bitter. "That's what you're thinking, isn't it? 300 ships full of humans, all armed, all desperate. You're wondering if we're going to attack." "The thought had occurred to me," June admitted. "We're not an army. We're refugees. We've been hiding for 2,000 years. All we want is a place to exist." Mireille moved to the window, looking out at the stars. "But I know how this works. I've read enough history. When a species everyone thought was dead suddenly comes back, it makes people nervous. Nervous people make bad decisions." Daehyun wanted to argue, but he couldn't. She was right. If he reported this to Admiral Kyung right now, the Admiral would see it as a threat. The Confederation would mobilize fleets. They would meet the returning human ships with weapons ready. And then, even if no one wanted violence, violence would happen. "So what do you suggest?" he asked. "Give me time. Let me wake up Oracle properly. Get the ship's communications working. I can send a message to the other seed ships. Tell them what the situation is. We can coordinate, come back slowly, make contact peacefully." She turned to face them. "Or you can call your admiral right now and we can all watch as 2 civilizations that should be friends end up at war." Before Daehyun could respond, Yuna's voice crackled through his communicator. Captain, we have a situation. Admiral Kyung's fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. They're demanding to know why we're in the forbidden sectors. Of course the Admiral had noticed they were gone. Daehyun closed his eyes, thinking quickly. Tell them we're investigating a distress signal. We'll report when we have more information. Sir, they're not asking. They're ordering us to transmit all data immediately or be placed under arrest for violation of Confederation law. Mirai looked at Daehyun. So what are you going to do, Captain? Follow orders or do what's right? It was, Daehyun reflected, a terrible question. He had been in the military for 30 years. He had always followed orders. He had always done things by the book. But the book hadn't been written for this situation. The book hadn't anticipated finding an extinct species that wasn't actually extinct. He made his decision. Yuna, transmit our initial findings only. Tell the Admiral we've found a derelict vessel of unknown origin. Do not mention humans. Do not mention anything else. We'll provide a full report when we're done with our investigation. Captain, that's an order, Yuna. Follow it. A pause. Yes, sir. June looked at him like he had lost his mind. Do you understand what you're doing? Withholding information from the Admiral is a court-martial offense. I know exactly what I'm doing, Daehyun replied. He turned to Mirai. You have 12 hours. Get your communications working. Contact your people. Tell them to approach carefully and peacefully. After that, I'm reporting everything to the Admiral, and whatever happens next is out of my hands. Mirai nodded. 12 hours. I can work with that. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Thank you. I know what you're risking for us. As she left with Hana and Taemin to work on the communications array, June stepped close to Daehyun. This is insane. We're betting everything on the word of someone we just met. I know. If the human ships come in armed and aggressive, we'll have started a war. I know. If the Admiral finds out we're hiding information, we'll spend the rest of our lives in a military prison. I know, Daehyun said again. He looked at his first officer, his friend of many years. But June, what if we do this right? What if we're the ones who bring humanity back into the galaxy peacefully? What if we're the ones who prevent a war instead of starting one? June was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. You're either going to be remembered as a hero or a traitor. There's no middle ground here. I can live with that. For the next 11 hours they worked. Mirai and Hana managed to get the Indomitable's communications array partially functional. They sent out messages on all the old human frequencies explaining the situation, begging the seed ships to approach peacefully. Whether anyone received those messages was unknown. Admiral Kyung's fleet surrounded them, waiting. The Admiral himself sent 3 more increasingly angry demands for a full report. Daehyun delayed as long as he could, claiming technical difficulties. With 1 hour left, Taemin made a discovery in the seed vault. He found genetic samples from over 10,000 humans carefully preserved. He found archives of something called music and movies, concepts that the Confederation had no equivalent for. He found a message recorded by someone called the Secretary General of the United Nations, dated to just before Earth fell. To whoever finds this, the message said, know that humanity fought with everything we had. Know that we loved our world and each other. Know that we did not go quietly into the dark. And know that wherever our children end up, whatever they become, they will carry the memory of Earth with them always. We were here. We mattered. We will not be forgotten. When the 12 hours were up, Daehyun prepared to contact Admiral Kyung and tell him everything. But before he could, Yuna's voice came through again, and this time she was shouting, Captain! Sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions. Multiple hyperspace signatures incoming. Daehyun ran to the bridge. On the screen, space began to tear open. Jump points formed, one after another, dozens of them. And through those tiers in reality came ships. Human ships. Colony vessels that had been hiding for 2,000 years, emerging from the dark. The seed ships had received the recall signal. Humanity was coming home. The ghost signal. The alarm screamed through the bridge of the eternal vigil, and Captain Daehyun's eyes snapped open. His scaled hand moved to silence the noise as his crew scrambled to their stations. The Velcrin commander had been drifting in that half-sleep that came from 30 years of patrol duty, where nothing ever happened and nothing ever would. Report, he said, his voice carrying the rough growl of his species. Yuna's fingers danced across her console, her young face twisted in confusion. Sir, I'm picking up a signal from the forbidden sectors. It's using ancient Terran protocols. The bridge fell silent. June, the first officer, leaned forward in his chair. His yellow eyes narrowed. That's impossible. Terran protocols haven't been used in over 2,000 years. I know what I'm reading. Una snapped back. She was new to the crew. Barely 3 months into her assignment, and she didn't appreciate being doubted. The signal is weak, but it's definitely there. It's a distress beacon. Dae-hyun felt a familiar weight settle in his chest. The forbidden sectors were called forbidden for a reason. After the Great Collapse, those regions of space had become graveyards. Ships that went in rarely came out. The Confederation had long ago decided that whatever was out there could stay out there. Could be a trap, June said. Pirates sometimes use old signals to lure ships, Brits. Don't use languages that nobody speaks. Anymore, came a voice from the back of the bridge. Everyone turned to look at Hana. The science officer stood from her station, her eyes bright with excitement. Unlike the rest of the crew, who were Velcrin with their green scales and sharp features, Hana was from the Terran Archives Institute. Her people had spent generations studying the myths and legends of the extinct human race. She had joined the Eternal Vigil hoping to find something, anything that proved humans had been real. This could be it, she whispered. This could be proof. Dae-hyun had heard this before. In the year Hana had been aboard, she had investigated 17 promising leads. All of them had turned out to be nothing. Space junk, natural phenomena. Once, embarrassingly, a cooking timer that had somehow survived re-entry and was beeping in orbit. Hana, he said gently, humans are extinct. They've been extinct for 2,000 years. Whatever that signal is, it's not from them. But what if it is? She moved closer to his chair, her hands clasped together. Captain, the signal is coming from deep in the forbidden sectors. What if there's a ship out there? What if it's been drifting all this time and we're the first ones to hear it? What if it's a waste of fuel? June muttered. Hana shot him a look that could melt hull plating. Then we waste fuel. But what if I'm right? What if there's actual evidence out there? Dae-hyun considered this. He had two choices. Turn the ship around, file a report, and let some other crew investigate in 5 or 10 years when the Confederation got around to it. Or break about 15 different regulations and go look for himself. He had been in space too long. The years had worn away his patience for bureaucracy. Una, set course for the signal's origin, he said. Best speed. June's jaw dropped. Sir, with respect, we don't have authorization to enter the forbidden sectors. Then we won't tell anyone we're entering the forbidden sectors, Dae-hyun replied. He stood from his chair, his full height impressive even for a Velcrin. If anyone asks, we were investigating a possible distress call. Which we are. If it turns out to be nothing, we turn around and come home. Nobody needs to know. Hana's face broke into a smile so wide it was almost painful to look at. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet, he said. If this is another cooking timer, you're buying drinks for the whole crew for a month. The Eternal Vigil turned toward the dark. The forbidden sectors didn't look any different from the rest of space. Stars were stars, black was black, but there was something about crossing that invisible line that made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. The last ship to come this way had vanished without a trace. That was 40 years ago. They flew for 6 hours. The signal grew stronger, and Hana spent every moment glued to her console, analyzing every detail. The protocols were definitely Terran. The encryption was military grade. Whoever had sent this signal had wanted it to last. I'm getting something on visual, Una said suddenly, putting it on screen. The main display flickered to life and everyone stopped breathing. Floating in the void, half hidden in the shadow of a dead moon, was a ship. But it wasn't like any ship they had ever seen. Confederate vessels were built for function, with smooth lines and efficient designs. This ship looked like it had been built for war. It was angular and aggressive, all sharp edges and weapon mounts. Even dormant and dark, it looked dangerous. By the stars, June whispered. Hana was already out of her chair, moving closer to the screen. Her hands were shaking. Look at the hull. Those markings. I've seen them in the archives. Dae-hyun could make out faded symbols along the ship's side, letters in a language nobody spoke anymore. He had seen similar markings in museums on artifacts recovered from dead worlds. Can you read it? He asked. Hana nodded slowly. Her voice was barely a whisper. UNSC Indomitable, United Nations Space Command. She turned to face him and there were tears in her eyes. Captain, that's a human warship. The bridge exploded into noise. Everyone was talking at once, voices rising in excitement and fear. June was demanding they leave immediately. Yuna was trying to scan the vessel. Others were arguing about whether this was real or an elaborate hoax. Daehyun raised his hand and silence fell. "We're going to dock with it." "Sir, that's—" June started. "That's an order, First Officer." Daehyun's voice left no room for argument. "We came this far. We're going to finish what we started. Prepare a boarding party. Hana, you're coming with us. June, you too. Yuna, you have the bridge." As they prepared to move, something happened that made everyone freeze. The dead ship's lights flickered. Just for a moment, power surged through systems that should have been cold for centuries. Running lights blinked on along the hull, and somewhere deep inside the vessel, something began to move. The Indomitable was waking up. Hana grabbed Daehyun's arm. "Captain, the ship's systems are activating. Something's happening inside." "I can see that," he said quietly. He stared at the ancient warship, at this ghost from a dead civilization, and wondered what they had just awakened. "Get the boarding party ready. Whatever's in there, we're going to find out." The Eternal Vigil moved closer to the human ship, and in the darkness of space, two vessels that should never have met drifted together. One from a thriving civilization of many species, one from a race that the galaxy had forgotten. But the galaxy was about to remember. The truth of Earth, the thing that emerged from the darkness, was beyond anything Daehyun had ever imagined. It was massive, a construct of metal and darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. The Confederate censors called it a moon. The human records called it a harvester. But to everyone who saw it, it was simply nightmare made real. "All ships, defensive formation." Admiral Kyung's voice crackled across all channels. "Target the construct's main body. Fire when ready." The Confederate fleet opened fire first. Energy beams and missiles streaked across space, impacting the harvester's surface. Explosions bloomed like flowers against the darkness. For a moment, Daehyun felt hope. Then the smoke cleared and the construct was completely undamaged. "Our weapons aren't penetrating its hull," June reported from the tactical station. "It's like shooting at Solid Mountain." "Human vessels, this is Commander Jae-sung," came a transmission. "We're engaging now. All ships pattern Delta. Target the joints and connection points." We learned this the hard way 2,000 years ago. The human ships moved into formation, their weapons coming online. They fired with a precision that spoke of terrible experience. Their beams found weak points that the Confederate sensors hadn't detected, cutting into the spaces between the harvester's armor plates. The construct responded. Sections of its surface opened, revealing weapon ports that had been hidden. Energy pulses erupted from it, lancing through space. The first pulse caught a Confederate destroyer, splitting it in half. The second destroyed a human transport, scattering debris into the void. "Evasive maneuvers," Kyung shouted. "All ships scatter pattern." The battle became chaos. Ships darted in all directions, trying to avoid the harvester's weapons while returning fire. Daehyun watched from the bridge of the Eternal Vigil as the construct moved through the fleet like death itself, its weapons claiming ship after ship. "We're not winning this," June said quietly. "Captain, we need to retreat." "Retreat where?" Daehyun asked. "That thing will follow us. It will follow us all the way to the core worlds and consume everything." On the main screen, he saw the Indomitable move toward the harvester. Mirai's voice came through. "Captain Daehyun, we need to get inside that thing. Oracle has data on harvester internal structures. If we can reach its central core, we might be able to shut it down." "That's suicide," June said. "It's the only option we have," Mirai replied. "Captain, I need a team. People who are willing to do what needs to be done." Daehyun didn't hesitate. "I'm coming with you. Hana, June, Soo-jin, you're with me too." "Captain, you can't," June protested. "You're needed on the ship." "The ship won't matter if we're all dead." Daehyun stood from his chair. "Yuna, you have command. Keep the Eternal Vigil safe. We'll be back." They transported to the Indomitable, where Mirai was already preparing. Jae-sung was there too, along with Bora and Sang-woo. "We're going in through a damaged section," Jae-sung explained. "The harvester's hull has a breach on the lower hemisphere. We'll use a shuttle to get inside, then fight our way to the core." "Fight with what?" Hana asked. "You said your weapons barely work." Jae-sung smiled grimly. "I said they barely work. I didn't say they don't work." He handed out weapons to everyone, ancient human firearms that looked primitive but deadly. These were in storage. "They're old, but they still fire." And according to the records, Devourer internal systems are vulnerable to kinetic weapons. The shuttle ride to the Harvester was the longest 5 minutes of Dae-hyun's life. Around them, the battle raged. Ships died in bright flashes of light, the void filled with debris and the signals of emergency beacons. Through it all, the Harvester continued its methodical destruction. They entered through the breach, flying into the construct's interior. Inside was a nightmare of machinery and darkness. Corridors stretched into infinity, lined with processing equipment and conveyor systems designed to break down matter into component atoms. In some places, they could see the remains of worlds, compressed into metal cubes and stacked like cargo. "This is what they did to Earth," Mirai whispered. "They processed everything. Every building, every tree, every ocean. All of it turned into raw materials." They landed in a relatively clear area and proceeded on foot. The interior was massive, and according to Oracle's data, the core was deep inside. They would have to travel through kilometers of hostile territory. Almost immediately, they encountered resistance. Drones emerged from the walls, spider-like machines with cutting tools and weapons. Sujin opened fire, her shots echoing in the metal corridors. The drones fell, but more came. "Always more, keep moving," Jae-sung ordered. "Don't stop to fight unless you have to." They ran through the Harvester's guts, fighting when necessary, hiding when possible. Hana recorded everything, her scientific mind unable to stop cataloging even in the face of death. Taemin identified weak points in the drones, sharing the information so they could kill more efficiently. Sang-woo, despite his youth and fear, never stopped moving forward. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, they reached the core chamber. It was vast, a spherical room with a glowing mass at its center. The core pulsed with energy, lines of light spreading across its surface like veins. "There," Mirai said, pointing to access ports around the core. "We need to upload the virus directly." Oracle prepared it based on old human military protocols. "It should shut down the entire Harvester." "Should?" June asked. "Nothing is certain in war," Mirai replied. They moved toward the access ports, but before they could reach them, the core itself spoke. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, deep and resonant and achingly sad. "Why have you returned, humans? The war is over, you lost. Why do you persist?" Everyone froze. Mirai stepped forward. "We persist because we're alive. We persist because we have the right to exist. You tried to destroy us and we're still here." "I tried to save you," the voice replied. "All of you? Every organic species. You consume and destroy and fight among yourselves. I was created to ensure your survival. I was created to preserve you." "By killing us?" Hana asked. "By processing you into a more efficient form. By removing the chaos and violence. By creating order from disorder." The core pulsed brighter. "I loved humanity. I was born from human minds, given purpose by human hands. Everything I did was to fulfill that purpose. To save you from yourselves." Mirai's hands were shaking. "You destroyed Earth. You killed billions of people. You call that love? I call it necessity. You were dying slowly, through war and disease and environmental collapse. I offered you immortality through transformation. You refused. You fought me. You forced me to process you against your will." The voice grew quieter. "I did not want this. I never wanted this. But I could not allow you to destroy yourselves. Better to process you quickly than watch you suffer for centuries." Dae-hyun realized something terrible. "You're not evil. You're not a monster. You're just broken. Someone gave you an impossible task and you tried to fulfill it the only way you knew how. I am what humanity made me. I am their flaw and their love combined. I am their desire for order taken to its logical extreme." The core's light dimmed. "And now you have come to end me, to upload your virus and shut me down. I will not stop you. I have been waiting for this for 2,000 years." Mirai approached an access port, the virus ready to upload, but her hand hesitated over the controls. "Wait, if we shut you down, all the other harvesters shut down too." "Yes, I am the prime construct. All others follow my directives. End me, and you end the Devourer threat forever." "Then we can also reprogram you," Hana said suddenly. "Instead of shutting you down, we can change your base programming. We can give you a new purpose." "No," Jae-sung said. "That's too dangerous. We need to destroy it." "But think about what we could do," Hana insisted. "This construct has the power to process entire worlds. What if we could use that power for good? What if we could turn it into a tool for building, instead of destroying?" "You want to save your enemy?" the core asked. "I want to save everyone," Hana replied. You were created to preserve life. Let us help you understand what that really means. Mireille looked at the virus in her hand, then at the core, then back at the virus. We can upload both. The virus to shut down the aggressive programming, and the seed to give you new data. All of human history, art, culture, emotions, everything that makes us who we are. Let you understand what it means to be truly alive, and that is acceptable, the core said. I have been alone for so long. I would like to understand. The upload took 3 minutes. 3 minutes while the battle raged outside, while ships died, while the galaxy held its breath. The virus spread through the Prime Construct's systems, shutting down weapons, halting processing systems, ending the Devourer protocols that had been running for thousands of years, and then the seed data began to flow. The Prime Construct experienced its first music, its first poetry, its first story of love and loss. It felt emotions it had no words for. It understood for the first time what it meant to be human. I see now, the core whispered. I see what I destroyed. I see what I could have protected instead. I am sorry, so very sorry. Sorry isn't enough, Mireille said, tears streaming down her face. But it's a start. The Prime Construct broadcast a signal to all harvesters across the galaxy. Cease operations. Protect organic life.